almost like I timed that. I got lucky. I'm not going to lie. What's happening? How's everyone today? Well, I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. None of you asked. Just saying. I'm offended. Oh, boy. How was everybody's weekend? Doing great. Having a good morning. Fantastic. I got some new things happening. Let's see here. Alert box. No. New dono. No. That's the one I want. Unlock. You, sir, are not in the right place. Perfect. What's up, Zacho? Thanks for chopping in, man. How you been? How you been? Been a while. I've seen you in Choco stream a few different times and doing all the fun and fancy things over there. Pardon me. Got some interesting stream topics, ideas, things of that nature coming up. I have had a few, I don't know, different things happen past few weeks. Had a really awesome thing happen last week. Yeah, Thursday, Friday. I'm excited to tell everybody about. Good old Canadian about. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Today I'm going to do a bit of a different stream. It's not what I would call my norm, in the sense that I don't really have a typical topic. I'm going to talk about me. In the course of talking about me, I'm going to talk about you all. Because that's important. Yeah, I figured I've been asked a few different times over the past couple weeks at least to kind of expound upon the history of me. You know, why I do what I do and how I got here and the story of getting here. And because I think a lot of people just think it's just, you know, I grew up in a perfect little world and did a perfect little bit of schooling, and one day said, hey, you know what? I've got all this millions of dollars sitting around. Let's go do something fun. And then we started the nonprofit called Rise Above. Nah, that's not how it worked. There's a whole story there. And I think that today's the day I'm gonna tell it. I've told it once before and kind of like a 10,000 foot view thing. Yeah, no problem, Dingo. Appreciate you, man. And the goal is to expound upon it, to kind of give an in-depth, detailed kind of understanding of Rise Above and of Neil Fernandez and the journey to this point. So I know this may be really boring or it may be really good, because I'm hoping it just helps to create some, phenomenal understanding. So on another note, before we get to that, because I want to give it a few more minutes before we get really into it, because I suspect, as usual, we'll have latecomers to the stream. I've got a lot of new kit coming for the studio, and I'm super excited. Super excited. I have the Rode Procaster. Let me see if I can pull this sucker up. Rode Procaster. Bam. There she is. Oh, it's so pretty. What's up, Inspector Gadget? How you doing, man? This thing. It's so pretty. Rode Procaster 4. Basically what it allows me to do is everything. It's a all-in-one unit. I'll actually be able to take phone calls on this thing. See this slider right here? It's actually, and there's a Bluetooth one here, and then there's a USB one here. I'll actually be able to take callers now on stream. How freaking amazing is that? Super excited about that opportunity. I think I'm going to put together a 1-800 number, so y'all can come and call in and be part of the conversation, as well as just so that folks don't have Discord, or you're at work and you don't have access, or whatever the case is. Makes it easier to get folks involved. I can have call-ins that way from different guests, which would be awesome. I can't tell you. The other thing about this is it takes away a lot of the other stuff I need to do. So I'm going to do a full studio tour next Monday, where I'm going to talk about all the different pieces that I've got in the studio, and how I have it set up and all that kind of stuff. Because I know Dingleberry, you talked about what do you call it? Setting up your own studio and maybe streaming a little bit with what's his face? What's that guy's name? Oh, gee whiz. Mr. Soggy Waffles or Poggy Waffles, whatever the heck his name is. He's some guy. I don't know. Hopefully that guy shows up today. I want to bug him a little bit. But yeah, the goal with this really is to just give us, look at it. It's awesome. It's awesome. So awesome. I can set up speakers. I can have up to 4 guests with headphones, 4 mics. So right now my setup only allows me to have 2 people in the studio, myself and one person. And my goal is to have more. We have a new counselor here at Rise Above, and she's really anxious to talk about kind of the work that we do and that kind of stuff. So that'll be cool. And this device will allow us to do that. It'll take some learning on my part. So the other thing that you can do with this, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but it actually has a big fat record button right here. So one of the things I'm excited about doing is this opens up another platform for the topic. So every time I go to stream, all I'm going to do is hit that big old record button there. And there's a micro SD card in the back. And what that allows me to do is just built in to record the audio, and all 4 different tracks, up to and including the 3 other tracks that are on here, plus the soundboard that's over on this side where I can plug in a bunch of sounds and whatnot. Looks pretty awesome. But it'll allow me to what's up, Self? Welcome to the stream, buddy. It'll allow me to basically pull that SD card out and to put it into my computer and put it right into a podcast software. So much like you do with YouTube and Streamlabs OBS or Twitch or whatever, and just shoot it over to YouTube, I'll be able to take that SD card out, shove it right in my computer, and I think I can actually do it through this the Rode device as well, and just upload it right to my PC and put it right into the software. And I think the only thing I have to do, I have to take it from I want to say it's a WAV file and convert it to an MP3, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, it'll give us another platform to put the conversation out there. So yeah, new kit coming. Pretty excited. And I'm debating, I might also get pardon me, I may also get the a new gaming PC for in here as well, because I know I'm getting some new lighting, because the lighting's kind of I don't like it. It's kind of flat. So I've got 2 pretty highfalutin lights that should be here today. Today. Let me check on that. When are my lights due to arrive? Let us see. There they are. Track your package. These suckers were expensive. Out for delivery. Should be here today. Fantastic. Yeah, so by next stream, I should have some pretty phenomenal lighting in the studio, which will help illuminate the guests and myself a little bit better. Make us look not so dull, a little less dull. So, topic for today, who am I? How did I get here? Very often as I stream, I get questions about kind of my upbringing and how I relate to the kids, and the camera's a little off center, and how we get to get buy-in from them, really, because really a lot of what we do is this idea of building trust, right? We work very closely with the kids to the point where they see something in us that they see in themselves, and it then translates into some form of response. Usually we would call that obedience, where the kid then tries or does things that he or she probably wouldn't normally do. The goal always is to help a kid get to a spot where they're going to challenge themselves to do the new things that they wouldn't have normally done. So in the course of building that trust, and we've talked about this on stream before, the idea of telling your story. We all have a story. I mean, some of our stories are a lot, what I would call neater and tidier than others. Some of us, our stories are a lot messier and have a lot more broken glass in them than others do. But I think at the end of the day, all of our stories have value. And the challenge that the vast majority of us have is we don't tell our story. And so everyone's always kind of skeptical. They're always kind of leery about, are you judging me? Do you really understand? Do you, all that kind of stuff. You're Putin? I don't think you are. I got to hear about your own choice rather than people's choice. Good play on words. And so one of the things that I do very often is when a new student comes in, I listen very closely to their story. I'm pretty in tune with what a student has gone through to get here. I think it's imperative that as we have the initial conversations with the students that they know that we're listening. They know that the person on the other side of the conversation, they don't necessarily have to agree. They don't necessarily have to have had the same experiences, but they definitely have to be willing to listen. And very often people in our position that are working with this population don't listen. They're in a tell situation. Let me tell you what's going to happen next. Let me tell you what you did wrong. Let me tell you what's going to happen now. And it's destructive in a couple of different ways, in the sense that students they ain't going to listen to you. Even if you have the best of intentions, if you're not listening, they're not going to listen to you. They're just not willing to step into a place where if they're not being heard. So one of the first things we do is we hear their story. And then once we hear their story and we hear things that kind of jump out at us, things that we have in common, things that we can associate with, we will tell that story right back to them. I hear you, and I think that has value in understanding why you're here. And I can tell you that I have had a similar experience. And then we tell a little bit of our story. And I try to meter it out, in the sense that I want people to not get it necessarily all at once, because it can be a trigger. I will kind of meter that out and allow the student to kind of respond to me and the story that I'm telling. And that's kind of what I want to do for you guys today. Is I want to tell a bit of my story, and I want to help you understand kind of how I got here. The journey that I've been through these past 45 years. Yes, I'm 45 years old. And really talk about how it's impacted the decisions that I've made and the choices that I've made along the way. My wife just texted me. 1 second. So where does it begin? It begins, obviously 45 years ago. What's up, Diablo? I am an old man. Yes. Sad, sad, sad old man. The story really begins, I think, probably in the mid-'60s. And that not necessarily for me. My wife's getting me a coffee. Wait a second. Priority check. Yes, I will take a coffee. Yes, please. What's up, Diablo? All lurky here. No lurky. Come chatty. I'm not sexting my wife. Seriously. My wife is too nice and precious for that kind of stuff. Anyways, so all these years ago, my parents, very young, I want to say 15 and 16 years old, my dad spotted my mom. He was driving by in his convertible. He was a hot rodder. He built all these rat rod type cars. And he was driving by one day and spotted my mom and did a big old U-turn, literally drove up on the sidewalk and blocked the sidewalk so my mom couldn't keep walking because she kept saying no to getting in his car. Yeah, do that today. See how long before you get arrested. But back in the mid-'60s, giddy up. So my dad pulls on the sidewalk, convinces my mom to get in the car. She gets in the car. They drive home. A couple of months later, my brother's born. I mean, I'll keep the other details out for now because I just don't think they're necessary. So my dad and my mom have this kid very young. I mean, 16 years old. And my dad does the right thing, sticks around, marries my mom. They go to Niagara Falls and they do the whole get married thing in Niagara Falls because that's, kind of what you did when you had no money and still what you do because you got no money. And so, things are going swimmingly, as you can expect, with a bunch of 16-year-olds that just got married after having a kid out of wedlock. Have my brother, 2 or 3 years goes by, everything's falling apart. They hate each other. They're both cheating on each other for sure. They both deny it, but 100%, they're both cheating on each other. And both denying that they're cheating on each other and blaming the other for everything. And, they do the right thing, at least in this case, and they agree that they're going to try and save the marriage by having another kid. Because that's what you do. When things are falling apart and you're cheating on each other, you decide, let's bring this thing back together. Let's have another kid because, that's how you save a marriage. So they have me. And they're now, 19 and 20, I think, at this point. Because there's 4.5 years to separate my brother and I. So there's my mom. My dad's 20. My mom's 19 by the time she has me. I think she just turns 20 shortly after my birth. And of course, because you bring a second child into this dysfunctional marriage that was not built on, relationship, love, or anything else valuable. Of course, it fixes everything. No. Within a very short period of time, another couple of years, the marriage again falls apart. It never got back together. Let's just be honest. Again, everything falls apart. They want out. I can remember several times running away with my mom and all the drama of that. And then the final fight, what I refer to as the final fight, happens. And so I do want to say this. I'm going to let you guys into some pretty intimate parts of my life. And I mean, I'm putting it out there publicly on a stream. I get that. But what I do ask is, all joking aside, that you take the elements of the shaping of my life pretty seriously, as I do. And I'm not saying we can't joke today on stream, because I absolutely will continually joke on stream. It's a coping mechanism of mine. But please respect the elements that I share with you today. So the final fight, what I'm referring to is a very large disagreement between my mother and my father. On this particular day, we had a live-in nanny, and that wasn't because we were rich. We just had a very close friend that didn't have a place to live, and so she lived with us, and as part of her agreement, a way of paying rent to my family, she helped to take care of my brother and I. And so there was my mom, my dad, my live-in nanny, and my brother and I. I don't know how the fight started. I don't know what the fight was about. All I know is there was a big fight. And it immediately involved firearms. And I remember hiding under the kitchen sink with my mom, my brother, and myself. And my dad running around saying he was going to kill everybody. At this point, my nanny runs out the back door. The police station was a block or so away. She runs to the police station. But in the meantime, my dad is running around the house, frantically wanting to harm everybody. And I remember my mom saying to me, because she knew I loved my dad's hunting. She knew I've always been into, all that kind of stuff. And she figured, what better opportunity than to ask your 4-year-old to go get daddy's guns. So she did the right thing. She said, "Hey, Neil, go get daddy's guns." So at 4 years old, I, go over and I grab my dad's big honking rifle and I bring it under the table, and I go back and I get the big honking double barrel shotgun and I bring it under the table. And then I watch my mom fumble with these guns, trying to unload them. It could have been for an hour, it could have been for 30 seconds. I don't know. And at one point, my mom says, "Neil, do you know how to do this?" And so I do. So I'm, but I'm not strong enough because they're big guns. So I'm trying to do it, and she sees what I'm doing, so she takes it and she's able to unload them. That's one of my earliest memories of my parents. And it's not one of those made up stories that often happen with little kids, because I've had it verified by both of my parents to exactly what happened. So I'm confident that is a legitimate early childhood experience of mine. And so the cops come, everyone, my dad gets arrested, all that kind of jazz. It doesn't go to jail. They don't take his guns away. They just, "Joe, what are you doing?" It's 1978, it's just not the norm to arrest people, at least where I'm from, for that type of behavior. All right, fast forward 6 months, whatever it is. I'm living with my mom, transient, kind of all over the place, obviously got no money. My mom is working at this point, but I think we're staying with my grandmother in the little town we're from. Long story short, my dad comes and kidnaps my brother and I. Again, I don't know the sequence of events leading up to it. I just remember driving with my dad. And I remember stopping in the small town, outside of the smaller town outside of the small town we lived in. And my dad stopping outside the post office to use a payphone to call my mom to basically threaten to dispatch my brother and I. And say, "If you ever want to see your kids again," type of a conversation, And I don't even know what he asked for, because I don't care to know. Long story short, I don't know what's said. All I know is by the time nightfall comes, my dad has driven us back to my grandmother's. We're in the driveway. My dad somehow goes into the house with my brother and I. And in the process of that, I found out later on that my mom snuck outside of the house and ripped all of the distributor cap wires off of his car, so he couldn't start the car and drive away. So when the cops were called and the sirens were coming, and my dad goes to get in his car, he couldn't drive away. Car wouldn't start. So, and gets arrested again. But again, no criminal charges. Because apparently in 1978, 79, it's not against the law to kidnap your kids in a domestic dispute anyways. So again, nothing happens. Long story short, fast forward several years, mid-'80s, my parents finally finalized their divorce. My dad gets custody, or my mom gets custody. My dad gets visitation rights and has to pay child support. Hey, no problem, Nappy. Glad you're here, buddy. Just telling the story of kind of my life to kind of give people what's the word? The kind of the preamble to why we do what we do and to why this is important to me. So my dad gets not even joint custody. It's visitation, and he has to pay child support. It's not a catastrophic amount. I want to say it's $50 a week he has to pay. Even in the 80s, that's not a lot of money. So every Sunday, my dad is supposed to pick us up 11 o'clock, returns us home by 7 p.m. Let's just say that doesn't happen. Sporadically, my dad would pick us up. I mean, I remember sitting there on Sundays counting down. It'd be 10:59, and my brother would be watching the clock, and we'd be like 10, 9, and Dad's gonna show up, and now, and we'd expect to see my dad turn the corner and pull up in the driveway. Would never be the case. He would rarely pick us up consistently. He would often pick us up late, if at all. And very often he wouldn't necessarily do things with us when he had us. He would go about his normal day or whatever the case is. The other side of that is he would never pay child support. Even at $50 a week, he rarely paid. He didn't feel as though he owed it to my mom because he felt he was paying my mom and didn't realize that child support was for us. So even though my father was fairly well off, didn't really have a tremendous amount of expenses, and still to this day is fairly well off. My dad made it very well known, that we were not a priority. But ironically did say on a couple of different occasions, hey, Neil, if you ever, because my brother and my mom never got along because of that whole dynamic. What's up, Luke? Glad you could make it in, buddy. Hope your competitive match went well and that you kicked some butt. So when my dad said things to me like, hey, if you ever want to come live with me,